Okay, so there's a number of reasons why I wanted to do this 2.4 story review. First reason, obviously, it's content. My community wants to know my thoughts in particular on how the story has been transpiring, my perspective on how things are unraveling, my praises, my criticisms, and all that jazz. The second reason, though, is explaining what happened to the people who played and went through the story and still have no earthly clue what happened. And so you came to this video because you're like, Smack's good at explaining things. Maybe he can help me understand this, and then I'll end up having my 2 cents to give in. The third reason is because I'm very excited to talk about it. And that is sincere praise coming from someone like me. I think Kudo Games, I've said this before, they have been improving tremendously. I mean, God, they've grown leaps and bounds with the quality of their storytelling, not just from a presentation perspective, but dialogue consumption as well. I found myself many times during the story playthrough enjoying NPC dialogue.
Aye, Capitolini Hill's holding the Great Aegon now in the city. Happens every 4 years. All of Septimont's talking about who'll be the next champion. You here for the games too?
I'll say it as many times as y'all need to hear it, man. The fact that Kudo does not let a single fucking NPC or character in this game have a shit VA is astounding to me. That is just like, that's an anomaly in this gacha space. NPC dialogue, you're always like, oh God, get off the stream. Skip, get this guy off the stream. I don't even skip the NPC dialogue. So I'm genuinely excited to talk about it. Let's go ahead and walk you through everything, and from my perspective. So to start off the story, there's residual frequency of Cartethyia leaking like throughout the city, and the Rover has noticed this, and he's always able to establish a connection with Cartethyia. Why? Honestly, I don't know. This part may have been mentioned in some previous part of the story that just got by me. There's two ideas that come to my mind. One, it's the sword that he has, that he found as you were going through the 2.2 story, and that sword allows him to keep a connection with her. Or the second reason I believe is because she was created by the Thermodian while being inside of the Sentinel, which means she's technically half Sentinel. As the Arbiter, you're able to keep a connection with all Sentinels, right? Maybe her being half Sentinel enables the Rover to always keep a connection. Anyways, not to get off track, the connection's like broken. It's like he has a tether, but it's like completely disrupted, and he's lost contact with her. So she is pointing in one direction with what connection still remains, and that's in the direction of Septimont. And so that's like your first motive. Now, what's interesting is what better way to draw you into the dialogue than to do it with beautiful Cantarella with her voluptuous bosom, right? You're already locked in as soon as she enters the screen with that hologram. Look at it, it shows off the figure and everything. They even put the dialogue right by the boobs, but it's a bit of a double-edged sword, because how you gonna pay attention to the dialogue with her on the screen? That's why you got me to explain to you how these things have transpired. Anyways, enough of the jokes. Cantarella explains to you a bit about the Septimonian culture and what you can expect as you go across to that land. She tells you that the Septimonian people pretty much, I'm not going to say it was a pilgrimage, but they got led across the sea by the Sentinel to settle on the land now known as Septimont. She then explains to you that they have a bit of a difference in their cultural belief system as opposed to the Ragunesi or the Ragunian people. She says that they don't believe in the Sentinel. Now, looking back on this particular wording in hindsight, I didn't really like it. Because when you go through this story, you'll come to find out that it's not, they most certainly acknowledge the Sentinel and honestly even believe in the Sentinel. In fact, they even revere the Sentinel, which means they respect it. They just don't worship the Sentinel. And I think it would have been better wording to say that they don't worship the Sentinel, not they don't believe in it. However, maybe I'm arguing semantics in that regard, but I think technicality wise, you can believe in something without worshiping it, if that makes sense. Anyway, she goes on to explain to you that these people are all about glory. They don't feel death. They love battle. They revere heroes, not the Sentinel, which once again, I disagree with that. I think they revere both heroes and the Sentinel, but they're not going to give all credit to God. There's this saying in Christianity where it says all glory be to God, where the Septimonians, they wouldn't like that belief because they think that people who have died on the battlefield, blood, sweat, and tears and all, deserve some of that glory, if not all of that glory. And so that was an interesting bit there, because it's already setting up some type of dialogue that you can relate to real life that will most certainly cause a bit of discontent between people of religious faith and people of non-religious faith. And I love, I love these type of elements getting placed inside of a game story, because it's something that's worth talking about. It's a easy disparity in two different belief systems that usually can bring both belief systems together if the story told is written in a very elegant manner. There's another thing she says to you that I find quite humorous. She says there's border control in Raguna for Septimonians, but there's no border control in Septimont for Raguna people or outsiders, period, which I think is hilarious, because there's a glaring, obvious problem for you to let people in your, area or jurisdiction as a faithful person of the church. Blasphemy! Y'all will have your head for saying the Sentinel doesn't deserve all the glory. You can easily see the church hating the Septimont people for not giving all glory to the Sentinel, right? Of course, them fucking pompous, self-righteous, sanctimonious pricks are not going to allow Septimonts on their land with that type of belief system. Hell, they've sent people on pilgrimages for less.
Abby, we've arrived.
Now, I want to be clear here. Of course, this is my personal experience, and it's not meant to be the gold standard for everyone else's experience, right? Me personally, it was purely a music choice. I thought the world design as well as how they presented it was quite beautiful, but the music did not hit for me. And music is so important when you're introducing something as grandeur, as a whole new island, I guess, so to speak. If it doesn't hit, then it's not going to be as impactful. I thought it would have been better to have some type of pantheon chant. We're going into this land that's very similar to Spartacus, Spartans and pantheons fighting and going to war and shit. They're all about glory and honor, blood, sweat, and tears, brother. I'm expecting to hear a bit of a war chant. And what we got was some type of song that was, I don't know, it kind of came off as Christian music almost, and it just didn't do it for me, man. I don't know what else to tell y'all. So that was the main reason why. I'm pretty sure if they put some type of war chant, and they came with some of the music I'm talking about later on in the story, I would have had a much more oh my God, bro, this shit is hype, type of experience. Anyways, that's, take it as you will. As we get there, you end up getting Cartethia's tether, I guess, that connection. It comes back a little bit more, and this continues to occur throughout the story. It comes and then it goes. And as you do a bit more traversing, they end up showing off the rest of Septimont, which I'll be honest, it doesn't seem as big as Raguna. Maybe because in reality, making a whole nother Raguna in the span of time that has already went by seems a bit unrealistic, I think, in real time. But what they did show off looked absolutely incredible. The fog, overseeing the land, looked beautiful. Yeah, it looked cool. I don't know what else to tell you. The land is in my eyes, a 9.5 out of 10. I think Kudo Games, in terms of their ability to deliver a world design, is pretty damn peak, if you ask me. After this, though, we cut over to Cartethyia. And at this point, I'm wondering, okay, what the hell is happening, right? And first playthrough, as I'm explaining this stuff with clarity to you now, this is after going through it a second time. The first time through, I'm like, what the hell is happening, right? I don't even know why we cut it to Cartethyia. Is this, what timeline is this? Is this the past? Is it the present? Or is it the future? These are the thoughts going through my head as they just cut over to Cartethyia. And at the time, I also didn't realize that there was an incubator and that I don't even know why the hell I was running on the walls like Prince of Persia and Assassin's Creed. None of this was really making sense to me. And if I'm being honest, I don't think there was a real purpose to you running on the fucking walls. Furthermore, you couldn't really control her. I had to convince myself that I was controlling her when I wasn't, bro. It kind of pointless. It just looks cool. It's like eye candy for not only you, but I guess the people that are watching you too. It gives off a good like, wow moment. But then when you actually do it, it doesn't really land as well. I kind of feel like Kudo needs to stop holding your goddamn hands on these activities and actually let you do the Prince of Persia thing for real, the Assassin's Creed thing for real. That's just my 2 cents. At the end of this though, you end up seeing Mia, and then it like completely transfers between Mia and Lupa. This is the first time where I'm just mind fucked. I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I'm sure a lot of people are thinking this too. And looking back on it in hindsight, it makes more sense to me now. But then I'm just like, what the hell is happening? You know, when we get out of there, I'm actually like happy though at first playthrough, because I'm going, I love when stories do this. I love when they throw you in some like scenario where you have no earthly fucking clue what's going on, because it sets up a bit of intrigue, a bit of suspense. And you're like, okay, we're going to get back to that and eventually it'll all make sense. And so I was fine with it then and there. I don't really have a real complaint about it, but it does leave a bit of a, like you're baffled. Anyways, we end up going back to Rover, and we're in like his timeline, I guess, so to speak. And you're talking to some NPCs in the city. And this is the first time that this leaves a deep impression on me in a positive manner, because a problem at large in the gacha space is a lot of these writers struggle with giving you good dialogue that doesn't have or involve characters you care about. Right? It's usually the characters you don't give a fuck about, where you're like, oh God, let me get through this, skip. But what I found in 2.4, I get 2.4, right? These NPCs aren't just meaningless yap. In fact, to the contrary, it's very interesting and significant or pertinent to the world building as well as the Septimonian culture. These guys are talking about elements that are giving you more of an understanding to how the lives are lived there, as well as what's happening in the arcing, I guess, story of Septimont. They're talking about like their excitement for the tournament. You're also learning the origins of these people, because they explain to you through this NPC dialogue that Septimonians have fought tacit discords to protect their land, and that their reverberations of battle created the Arsenosa itself, which is the highest form of glory. It's this freaking like godly being that was literally created through the battle cries and the warriors of the Septimonian lands. And so like you're sitting here exchanging this dialogue with them, and you're like, oh wow, this is actually interesting and pertinent to the story. It's not just some bullshit. Which is very refreshing to see, man, especially coming over from the Hoyosphere. Not throwing no shade, but often at times that's why people hate NPC dialogue. Anyways, in the same vein with these NPCs, you ask them if they've seen Cartethyia, because you realize that her tethering, like connection that you have with her, has gone through that same pathway. And they say, no, we've never seen her. And you know, ain't no missing Cartethyia, especially in the goddamn adult form. You can't miss them racks on her, but let me tell you something. That's a big woman. They haven't seen her. And so this is the first point of the story, if you've been like trying to keep up with it, where you're going, okay, he just confirmed that she most certainly passed through here. There is no missing this woman. She did get her real body back, so it's not like she's in the nether realm and nobody could see her. Everybody could see her. So if she's passed through, but nobody's seen her, what the hell, right? You might still be confused at this point, or maybe you're going, is she in an alternate timeline, right? First playthrough, that's what you would probably think. Once again, setting up suspense and intrigue as you're playing through Septimont. It's good. Continuing on though, once you finish that dialogue with those two, the game gives you an option to talk to more NPCs to better understand Septimonian culture. These optional dialogues are really good, because these two individuals that you go talk to explain to you even more so the belief system of these people. One of them tells you, which is what actually led me to disagree with Cantarella saying they don't believe in the Sentinel. If you talk to these two NPCs, they actually tell you that they respect the Sentinel. And one of them surmises that the Sentinel dropped the Septimonian people there because the Sentinel trusted in them to defend that land. And that's why the Sentinel left. And he was like, it's a great honor, don't you think? So like that there, I was like, so they actually respect the Sentinel. They fucks with the Sentinel. They just believe in themselves. And there's nothing wrong with that, if you ask me. And when you ask the other NPC, once again, optional dialogue, she tells you how they differentiate themselves from the Ragunesi. She says that, well, we think the heroes deserve the praise and the glory because they died on the battlefield to have what we can appreciate today. So, and she was like, I think it's pathetic that the Ragunesi put all their hopes, dreams, belief, and trust in the Sentinel because it's a form of weakness. What the hell are they gonna do? You can't do all that. And so she's explaining their perspective on a belief system that they disagree with. Whereas on the other end of the spectrum, you get the other side of the story. This is interesting. It's not useless yap. That's all I'm going to say. Let's move on. Now, this next character is somebody I want to brag about a bit. She's a 4-star character, which, let's face it, guys, she's definitely a 4-star. And she is not provocative, which means in order for Kudo Games to sell you this character or make you interested in her, they have to do it by personality, abilities, and story relevance. And I think they actually did it, for at least for me, pretty damn well. Her personality is very likable. She's not annoying. She's definitely the type to throw you a riddle but not give you the full answer. And I think that kind of ties in with her ability, which it was explained that she's capable of divination with talismans and fortune telling. She also deals with a little bit of exorcism. And I think with those powers kind of comes a responsibility. You kind of know what things are going to happen and how they're going to happen. And so you have to be careful with your wording. And so you try to help without helping. You have to kind of throw a riddler out and shit. And I feel like that's her role in the story with the Rover. But apart from that, she also has interesting backstory. She says she shares the same master as one of my favorite characters in the game, Kung Fu Panda, aka Jian Shin. And this same master was already spoiled to me by the fucking community. It's supposed to be the guy that got drip marketed with the rest of the characters for Septimont, which I think his name is Qian, the lone wayfaring swordsman. I think he is the master of both Buling and Kung Fu Panda. And so there's a lot of interest drawing you in with this character. And she doesn't take up much screen time. It's very little screen time. She's in and out and gone with the wind, quite literally sometimes. And so I thought that was impressive with her because they were able to narrow down those 3 elements with the little screen time while also dropping off the appropriate amount of backstory and then dipping her off the screen, which is once again impressive considering gacha game storytelling is usually so much convoluted dialogue.
Not bad.
That was a hell of an entrance. They did not show me them cheeks in 4K like that, bro. Oh my gosh, she's so fucking hot.
Keep me from fighting. Careful now. We'll see who rips whose throat out first.
Bro, I love her smile. Her smile's fucking amazing. Her smile's a 10 out of 10, bro. Lupa. My, oh my. I gotta say, guys, it's I get to this point where I'm like, okay, I'm numb to it at this point. That you cannot make another character that I'll fall for, that I'll just really like. You gave me Zani, you gave me Chang Li, you gave me Kung Fu Panda. I'm good. I'm cooked at this point. Then they do it again. Lupa is so likable. She has such a presence in the story, just so much personality. She's very invigorating when she's on the screen, whether it's just the eye candy, you can't stop looking at her drop dead gorgeous looks and body, or the new wave of facial expressions that have come into Wuthering waves with this character. God, damn it, Bobby. Wow, man, the power of facial expressions is insane, right? Like you look at these smirks she makes, and it's just such a joy to watch. I never knew that facial expressions could bring so much personality to a character, and yet here we are with Lupa, and I'm just like, man, bro, I love this character so much. She's got a lot of personality. She's got a lot of impact and presence and on-screen time. Honestly, she strongly carries the story of 2.4, not by herself, absolutely not. But she does just because of how they have designed her. I love her. I do. And when she first makes a hell of an entrance, boy. God damn it, boy. I was staring at them cheeks. Boy. I be staring at them cheeks the whole playthrough. Bro, chat. Imagine hitting the cheeks and she looking at you like that, bro. Okay, locking in. Lupa explains to you that these guys have been rigging the matches and pretty much trying to like set things up to where they're getting easy W's. And she actually used to be on their team. This guy that she just stopped was her previous teammate, and they both belonged to the House of Silva. Now, when I first heard House of Silva, two things came to mind. I'm like, okay, hold on. What kind of house are they? What kind of relationship is going on here? Are we talking House of Targaryen like Game of Thrones? Are we talking an house like Spartacus where you have warriors who fight for a house, albeit through straight up slavery so they can just live? Or an established agreement or contract where if you fight for this house and you win, you get paid, house gets paid, and y'all's clout rises together. It's like a symbiotic relationship. And the house generally is going to be some form of higher nobility, whereas usually the fighters are like commoners and they're just very skilled at fighting, right? Those were like all the questions coming to my mind as soon as I heard House of Silva. And then later on, we come to understand the Septimonian culture because Lupa herself explains that. But off rip, you immediately come to understand the nature of this woman. She's very chivalrous. She's also very righteous, and she just wants to fight for glory on even ground. And that's admirable. Like I said, very likable character. Now, on to a more important part of dialogue consumption. You notice that Lupa actually has a trace of Cartethyia's energy, the tethering connection that you have with her. And so you ask Lupa, have you met Cartethyia? And she goes, no, I have not. First time I hear this, again, going through it, not knowing how things unfold, you think, ooh, is she lying? Or does she have some form of amnesia? Because the evidence is there. The proof is there right in front of us. That is an interesting... I like that. I like how they set that up because you want those type of questions to pop in your head as you're going through a story without the answers being just blatantly fucking obvious. Anyways, with her explaining that nobody's ever faced Arsinosa directly, even though you know that she's confronted her, once again, you can be left with the question of, okay, well, what the hell's going on here? Because I know Cartethyia ain't lying for a fact, and this girl, she's telling a damn good, compelling story. I don't like detect any lies from her either. And so at the time, I'm still confused. But in hindsight, it's like, is there an alternate reality here, right? That's the next thing that you have to ask yourself. Once you understand all the little pieces of the puzzle, there has to be some form of an alternate dimension or reality because both people are kind of telling the truth. As this conversation continues on, Lupa takes this opportunity to use that information to compel you to partner up with her, saying that when y'all win the whole tournament, all the questions you have can be answered by addressing the Arsinosa, confronting them directly, as well as the F or Augusta. And yeah, we go on our merry little journey and take off. Onward! Now, before we continue on going into more story unraveling, there's an important Easter egg in here that I am so proud of. And the reason I'm proud of it is because frame one drip marketing of Lupa, you can go back and watch it. I point out that she reminds me of a certain anime character. They have similar features, personality, and kind of just the overall design concept of her is just quite striking to me in comparison to this character. And the character I was referring to was from an anime called Tales of a Chivalrous Knight. And her name is Stella. Same fiery aura, energy, and all. And when you go into this part of the 2.4 playthrough, they ask you what should your tournament name be, and one of the answers is Stella Lupa. There's no way that's just a coincidence. It's affirmed to me that I called it, brother. I'm insanely cultured, bro. I watch too many anime. That's also what that means, and that I'm a loser at 33. But you know what? A loser in my identity is actually a winner who just so happens to like the cool shit that people didn't know was cool when I was growing up, but now everybody knows it. What can I say, boys? I've always been based. Now, after that little Easter egg, you guys sign up to participate in a tournament. You guys clap a couple of cheeks, and afterward, you come to understand that Lupa is in fact incredibly popular. She's like a celebrity to the Septimonian people. And it's a nice thing to see. One, I'm glad that somebody else is getting glazed and not the Rover. But two, it gives more of a well-rounded picture to the life that Lupa is living, especially when they're trying to show her as a contrast to Mia as you progress through the story, and you get to see, well, I guess the life that she was living versus maybe the life that Mia was living. And it's kind of like going to draw in at the end and have a significance to that impact. Anyways, after that, though, you meet another NPC that is not boring. And this constantly impresses me because I am like a knee-jerk reaction to every time I'm forced to consume NPC dialogue is, oh, God. All right, let me go ahead and get through this. Nope. Very interesting guy by the name of Cartur, who is the manager of the House of Silva. And I think, once again, a huge selling point of being intrigued by this dialogue is the VAs or God tier for these NPCs. I'm like, bro, they are hiring peak VAs for NPCs. It's crazy, dog.
Disappointing. Not even a hint of charm when there's no crowd around to impress.
I like this guy. He's an asshole. He's a proper asshole. Like, it's like they're not cutting corners on elements. I feel other companies would just go, yeah, just give them the low budget VA for that guy. Who cares? Cartur is somebody who's very interesting because he gives off a very similar cunning and smooth talking demeanor as Cristofo. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people, much like myself, are thinking, is that like Cristofo in disguise? I don't know, bro. He's this guy here. He's a little different. You may or may not, you get that impression from Cartur. Even if you don't, it's still intriguing enough to listen to this dude and not just think he's some other NPC. But his presence in the story is, once again, a very cunning one. It's like this guy Sly, he's there to obviously not only just benefit from, you know, I guess being a manager and like trying to milk the fighters dry, but it seems that he's playing more of a role than he should be. That's the kind of the vibe I get from him. But yeah, after you get done talking with Cartur, you and Lupa begin progressing towards the next tournament site where you're gonna be fighting the next contestants. On the way there, you get to see more of the world design of Septimont, and man, does it look gorgeous. In fact, the thing I remember distinctively was these big overarching doors, man. And I remember talking with my chat and thinking, God bless, bro. Who needs to walk through doors that high? Do they got giants living here? No, it was just the grandeur way of the warrior race and pantheons and gladiators. They man, the Greeks, bro, they loved those massive, you can't even call them mansions. They were so ginormous that it's just much more than that. I can't even think of the word, bro. It's just absolute monumental building paths and structures. It's insane for humans to walk these grandeur landscapes that are quite literally man-made, you know? Anyways, that's just my 2 cents on that. Speaking of which, though, as you're traversing through these cities to get to your next destination, that too contributes to the overall experience and impact of the story, because they're doing the God of War thing. I've noticed Kudo Games have definitely been doing their due diligence as to what keeps somebody on the hook of a story, even through exploration, is dropping those little nooks of lore expositions while you're traversing. I've seen them do this a number of times. They did it with Lupa a number of times, but as you're going to search for Cartethia's connection more and more, you go to this I guess blocked off area of Septimont where I guess the dark tide got to it, and so not as many people go there as much. The jurisdiction you're at is the House of Silva's jurisdiction, and Lupa tells you that she actually used to play there as a child. As you're doing that, though, they're also explaining, ooh, stay away from there. Those are tacit discord areas. If you go in the water, you'll get attacked by these creatures. All of this is contributing to the immersion of what Septimont is, and also explaining to you simultaneously what the background of some of these history like places are, what Lupa did as a child. These are very important things to keep you reeled into a story immersion. And like, I know I'm pointing this stuff out and somebody might think I'm like glazing or like overselling it, but no, it's just, I'm trying to explain to you guys that this is how much they've improved upon storytelling in Wuthering Waves. They've stepped up their game with attention to detail, with the little things that matter, such as hiring better VAs and doing things like that. It all contributes to a good storytelling experience. That's all I'm trying to say. Now, that said, calling Tercules is insane. I was joking with Chad about this during the first playthrough. I was like, guys, come on, man. I've seen this shit in anime, bro. They changed one letter to avoid copyright. I don't know who the hell out there diabolically copyrighting people for using the name Hercules, but motherfuckers is petty these days, bro. You know, it's like the music copyright on YouTube. They'll copyright your ass for anything on YouTube, bro. Okay, we finally jump back to Cartethyia, who I don't know, once again, at this point, first time through, is this the past, present, future, separate timeline? Who the hell knows? But when we get here, I'm excited because we only saw it one time. And the first thing you see is Lupa. She seems like low energy, injured. She's like hovering herself. This is a literal polar opposite version of Lupa with Cartethyia. And I'm like, damn, okay, what is going on? The burning question in my mind is I just want to know the timeline of which this is transpiring at the time. The first thing that also like catches my eye is that this realm is showing off these like corals on the walls. And I'm like, what the hell is that? It later gets unveiled that tidal blight is what happened here. This is like a older jurisdiction of Septimont that the people had to flee. This was explained to you, because the dark tide kind of like swooped it up and such and like corrupted the whole place. And so it's interesting seeing this version of Lupa still here in this place, because I'm like, wait, if she's the only one left behind, did she get corrupted by tidal blight? Is that what happened? And also, what the fuck is Lupa doing here with Cartethyia while Lupa's with me and she's like radiating, invigorating, her aura's so like the sun. She's such a like positive person to be around. That question is just burning in my mind and I'm begging for it to be answered. And this is a good thing, once again, because I want this story to get to a point where once the questions do get answered, it's in a way that is satisfying to my soul as a consumer. Continuing on with the dialogue though, Cartethyia does ask Lupa if she knows what her name is. The dialogue says nameless girl too, and she says, I don't remember. And you can see an expression made by Cartethyia that kind of gives off a, ooh, I've been there, you know, type of vibe. And it's interesting because that kind of confirms to me that Lupa, or whoever this girl is, if it's even Lupa, I don't know, has been tainted without a shadow of a doubt by the Thrunodian. The Thrunodian can give you amnesia for sure. Now, as we're having this conversation with Cartethyia and Lupa, something has become very apparent to me. The world that Cartethyia is in is very dystopian and in direct contrast to the world that Rover and the current Lupa is in. It's like literal polar opposites, bro. Light and dark. But yeah, we jump right back to Cartethyia and Rover, and she immediately starts explaining to you how the economy functions in Septimont. The way the functionality of warriors and nobles is, the houses can't get paid if they don't have any warriors to fight for them. Warriors that fight for them prove that that house can protect Septimonian people from tacit discord attacks. And so they have to prove their worth in order to get paid, because if they aren't protecting people from tacit discords, they aren't a house that's worth like keeping around. You see what I'm saying? And so it's interesting because the way that their economy functions is quite literally in tandem with battle and fighting for your life. In fact, speaking of which, as you continue having dinner with Lupa, she actually unveils to you something very important, and that is how the current F4 Augustus became the current F4. She goes to say that 4 years ago, she became the champion in household name by crushing every single opponent. And from there, she worked her way up into the F4 seat, claiming her own house as well. So this woman quite literally became pretty much the ruler of Septimont, dead ass, by just beating everybody's ass. So that's pretty damn crazy, right? In case you were curious on, hey, I wonder how Augusta got to the F4 position. It's quite literally by throwing hands, bro, which is pretty cool. And it shows the badass, like, I guess, persona of who Augusta really is. She really is that bitch. Now, to wrap up this little dinner date with Lupa, there was one more bit of dialogue that I thought was quite relevant. And that was Lupa confessed more than Augusta, her favorite gladiator was Mia. Like, that was the girl she admired the most. She thought she had a lot of heart. She loved the way she fought, so on and so forth. And I feel like unveiling that bit of information is going to tie into the overarching story, as well as the contrast between Lupa and Mia. Now, this next part was one of my favorite parts of the entirety of the story, bro. It's when we go back to the hotel, bro. That shit looked like a love chamber. You, I, and everyone knows it, bro. I wanted to clap Lupa's cheeks inside of that chamber, brother. What? Hey, yo, Smack, you gotta chill, bro. I was being freaky ass Smack in the first playthrough too. Nah, honestly though, there was just such a beautiful song. It was a very like sentimental, nostalgic moment inside of this hotel. Lupa also kind of like pours her heart out to you on what gladiating is to her. You know, it shows off some insane angles of them cheeks and stuff, bro. Like, it's just like, this shit was pure cinema and eye candy. And the music was literal god tier music. It was perfect, bro. Oh, girl was hitting the vocals, man. Jeff's kiss. Bro, this song is busting, bro. Yo, there's no way this song is busting like this. Yo. Chat. She on that whole chat. That shit was fire, bro. And that shit made me happy, dog. That shit made me happy.
Gladiating means everything to me.
After that little hotel thing going on, though, you then run into what I would say is probably the most important piece of dialogue in the entirety of the story. It's when you run into our beloved PHROLOVA, who has been quite the antagonist in a very calming and like enigmatic. Is she like really a villain, or is she just like, I don't know, obsessed with poetry and riddles too? I don't know. It's a lot to PHROLOVA. If she is anything but boring, though, I would say. There's always more to her than meets the eye. No pun intended. And she's always like popping up when you least expect her to, with words of thought-provoking wisdom, I guess. So let's get into it. She says, I have an associate who adores the heroic tales throughout this land. For this reason, the missing girl you seek and the anomaly you sensed in Septimont, they are indeed threads in his tapestry. You could call it an obsession of his. So like off rip, bro, she straight up snitched on Cristofo. Like, she's just telling on my boy at this point. I'm like, damn, bro, you just gonna rat on him like that? Also, I love the freaking theme song of PHROLOVA while you're like talking to her. That should be busting, bro. It makes the mood all the more like intense, suspenseful, and also enjoyable. Continuing on though, she says, if we continue to meet as foes, the symphony grows monotonous, boring. I confess I find it rather uninspired. This was the first bit of dialogue where I thought to myself, okay, she doesn't want to be enemies. This is the first kind of foreshadowing that Kudo might pull the whole, oh, she's been your friend the whole time. You just didn't know this bit of information, and you know, they just wanted to entertain you and stuff. That is a worry. And if it happens, I can't say I'm going to be surprised, because that's just classic gacha game story, bro. They just can't make a playable character a villain. The shit is highly cringe, and you will find losers in this community that try to like make an argument for it. And other than just being like, bro, just write a fucking story, man. Like, who cares who's bad and who's good? Just write us a compelling story, you know? Stop getting in the way of the integrity of good writing just because of some dumbass unwritten rules of the gacha space and the pussy ass gacha community that can't handle bad people being bad as playable. I don't know. It's kind of like crazy at this point. However, We have yet to see it all unfold, but it's a tale as old as time in these parts, boys. Let me tell you something. You might as well just brace yourself, because that's probably what's going to get ready to happen. However, I do not wish to break the immersion of this story review. This is still really good dialogue, and it's still interesting, especially when you see these like following little episodes showing off like the fight between Lupa and Cartethyia, and then you meeting Lupa, and then the next scene, boom. Whoa, what the hell, brother? Why does she look so tainted and corrupt? Lupa, that is. That's because she is corrupted by the Threnodian right here. This is definitely what they call the tidal blight. You can see like these corals. Her eyes are dark, very much like Mia's. And so I believe this is what is going to be the fate of Lupa, according to PHROLOVA. As we're consuming this dialogue, this is what I said was like the most important part of the story, because this is setting up an intensity, a foreseeable future that is going to have some havoc, some darkness. And, you know, that's kind of something that we crave in the gacha space, because it always ends up turning into pixies and rainbow dust and shit. And like, oh, sell off into the sunset. Oh, whippy, you know. Anyways, PHROLOVA tells you that you've already met the guy who's like behind it all. Which once again, snitching on my man's Cristofo. What a snitch. She also says that he believes that the closer one stands to the protagonist, the greater their influence is over the tale. At this point, and I had been calling this out throughout the story playthrough, I said that Cristofo is pretty much Hermes from Don Machi. And those who have watched Don Machi, aka Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon, will know that that reference is pinpoint accuracy. Cristofo is the kind of guy that doesn't really have a side. He's not on the good side or the bad side. He's on the side that's going to give him the best entertainment and the best story. He'll even go against himself if it's going to give a better deliverance of a stage, of a climactic finish. That's the kind of guy he is. And those are usually the most dangerous people, because you can never read what they're trying to do. And their abilities usually are so goddamn like cunning and manipulative, to the point where you can't just beat them with just pure blown strength and like, you know, brute force. You have to be more tactful, and you have to kind of like understand what they're thinking and what they want to counter them. Continuing on, PHROLOVA says the true lead of the story has yet to emerge. And she said, I gave you this place so you can see the ending. The Gladiator girl will be the harbinger of the dark tide in Septimont. How is she going to bring the dark tide when she has such a radiating, like, positive, invigorating sunlight aura, right? She's just such a like joyful and positive person. How does she turn corrupt? Or maybe it's more of a metaphorical sense that the dark tide's going to come to her because of those qualities, right? One thought that came to my brain was she's kind of living in contrast to Mia's darkness. She's kind of living a life that Mia wanted. And so what if Mia, who clearly is corrupted by the Threnodian, is the dark tide coming to hunt Lupa? I'm overcooking right here. Like, we're just literally just brainstorming, because she hates Lupa. She hates the life that Lupa is living. She hates the fact that Lupa didn't experience all of like the turmoil and, you know, adversity that Mia faced, or maybe even some of the criticisms. That is a possibility, right? We don't know at this point, but I also think it's a possibility that Lupa just gets corrupted by the Threnodian inside of the place where Cartethyia is, and maybe you fight a doppelganger of her that isn't the Lupa you know, right? There's a number of things we can concoct and like try and conclude from what we just were shown by PHROLOVA, because she doesn't really give off a hint of I'm lying to you or any of that sort. But most importantly, the fact that I'm sitting here cooking up all these things goes to show that the Kudo devs have done a phenomenal job with the writing here. This story is only going to last 3 days. You can claim the spotlight by ending her life before the curtain falls. Change the ending and the tragedy is averted. This is the ultimatum. But should you falter, or worse, warn her of what's to come, the consequences will spiral far beyond anything you can imagine. She just straight up said, if you do not kill Lupa, then some tragedy that is very destructive is going to befall, I guess, everyone. And so that's an ultimatum, which means they have to deliver on that. Well, as we know, as gacha consumers in these neck of the woods, they always have some type of bullshit scapegoat, some Marvel Avengers scapegoat that ends up untwisting all the shit. And right now, as we see it, Cristofo has some ability to manipulate reality. You know what I mean? Like, we're learning this from PHROLOVA right now with the tapestry shit. And so it's like, I hope they don't do something cringe. I hope we actually see some real threat to life, threat to preciousness of relationships, because that is what creates true intensity in storytelling. You know what I mean? And so that's why I said this was the most important part of everything, you know? And to wrap everything up, you say, how can I trust you? And then she, like a boss, just says, don't trust me. Just know that that story is going to occur exactly how Cristofo writ it. She says it with such confidence that it's like, oh my God, dude. That's why I like PHROLOVA. She's great. Now, this next part following your exit of that PHROLOVA little date you had is very theatric, quite cinematic as well. And I feel like the overall purpose of it is more so to explain to you how things work in Septimont in terms of, I guess, the chain of command, authority, the people versus like the F4 and the priestess, all of these like questions. And I wouldn't even say questions, just more world building and more of societal functionality in Septimont. All these things become apparent through this cinema, right? You meet F4 Augusta for the first time. She's so like empowering. The bitch has so much aura, so much authority, right? And then you meet the priestess who comes down from like, bro, I don't know, it was like a 400-foot jump, and she barely like has any impact when she touches the ground. So she has some type of insane control over gravity in terms of her ability to like just touch land. And then you have the crowd in awe, and then the leaders of the houses watching. All of this is kind of just showing off how Septimonians deal with like acts of betrayal or somebody like committing treason, rules being broken. This whole scene pretty much shows off all of that, which is nice. Again, I think that's important for me to convey to the audience watching this. There's a purpose to the cinema being displayed other than, oh, wow, that looks cool. Man, she looks hot. There always needs to be an intent behind what it is exactly that we are viewing. And I feel like they did that quite well with all of these theatrics. So this part here is where Rover starts like reflecting on the conversation he had with PHROLOVA, and he actually starts to put to thought the things she said, and he starts to consider them. And he's thinking, is this a reality that I am in? While taking into consideration Cristofo does have the ability to like warp reality in some sort of way. And so like, if it is, killing Lupa obviously would be a decision that would leave his mind mentally unstable, because this is the guy who wants to be the hero all the goddamn time. And then he was thinking, well, but if it's not a reality and it's fictional, then I could take more drastic measures and move a bit more aggressively. I thought this was cool because this was the first time where it kind of confirmed to me that without a shadow of a doubt, there's definitely alternate realities occurring. Then things would make a lot more sense as to how shit keeps overlapping and stuff. Now, as you're sitting here contemplating this, Buling pops up out of the blue again. And this time she comes with an item that I imagine is an extension of her abilities to show the truth to an extent. And basically what it allows you to do is like look into this mirror that gives you a glimpse into the life that Mia lived. And it shows it from like pretty much a number of facets that paint the picture. Like, and Mia, looking back on it, was in quite the, I would say, darkness in terms of isolation. I mean, she was getting used and abused by her manager. She was getting used and abused by the crowd, by her own house. I mean, this girl, she was going through it not only behind the scenes, but on the stage as well. And then at the end, it shows her like in an act of desperateness, saying she hopes that she can make the people happy. She even confesses in the divinity, which is crazy because Mia being a Septimonian, the last thing you would think she would want to do is pray to the god. You know what I mean? Like that just goes against the very culture of Septimont. After that though, you finally like see Lupa walking towards you. And as Lupa is walking towards you, reality distorts a bit again, and you see Mia walking towards you in the literal exact same spot as Lupa. And at this point, I have a different perspective. I'm like, wait, okay, what the hell is happening now? Why does it keep distorting Lupa and Mia, and they're in the exact same spot? Is Lupa Mia? Is that what that's trying to tell me? Or is it two separate realities occurring in the exact same instance? And you're kind of, because you're the Rover, like, you know, you got the godly powers and you just see things a bit better, bro. You got the 20/20 vision. You're like, probably, how do I say that? You're like breaking the disparity in realities a bit with just your fucking awareness. And you're able to kind of see what's happening on the other side. You're able to seep into what's happening on the other side, just for, if only for like a brief moment. That was kind of what went through my head at this particular point. And what's funny is it jumps back over to Cartethyia and Lupa, and the same exact thing occurs. Cartethyia walks away, Lupa's following her, and then it distorts, and it's Mia that's following her. And so maybe Cartethyia and Rover, the closer they get to like unraveling this mystery, it starts to distort their realities and bring both of the realities to a singular reality. Okay, before we move on to the final little tidbit of like discussion, it is worth mentioning that this one scene showed off the most voluptuous cheeks of Lupa. My God, that woman is a 10 out of 10. All right, my bad, bro. Let's move on. Okay, so this part, right before you guys go into battle, Lupa goes, hold on, I forgot to tell you something about Mia. She actually, decades ago, during the Great Aegon, Mia disappeared on her way to receive the award. But before that, she did claim the title of the Bloody Aegon and even received Arsenosa's blessing. This was like a massive lore bomb drop. First of all, timeline revealed decades ago. This is when Mia's timeline participated in this tournament. Then she disappeared on her way to receive the award. This is the part I wanted to get to. If she disappeared as she was going to receive the reward, then that means she quite literally was snatched from that reality. Or like, what else would that mean? Thanos snapped her? I think this is like the final piece of the puzzle where you're able to cook up something. Not that it's true and anything's set in stone, but this is where you can kind of like speculate with all the pieces of the puzzle that we have, right? You got Cristolfo able to warp reality and control things to where he can like make a story unfold how he chooses to make it unfold, somewhere along the lines of that. And then you've got Mia decades ago on her way to receive the reward, and then she just disappears. Who else disappeared? Cartethyia. Cartethia's in a different reality. Even though she's walked through the same streets you walked through, nobody's seen her. So that's like taking all those clues into consideration. From here, I think we can deduce that Cristolfo might have been the one decades ago, possibly. If not him or the Thermodian, I don't know, unless another play of power is here and we don't know it yet. But they took her out of that reality and placed her in another one. And Cartethyia is in the same reality that Mia is in. And then Lupa and Rover are in the real reality. That's how I see it. But why can't Rover see Cartethyia? That might have, I think that absolutely has to do with Cristolfo. Cristolfo's ability is preventing these two, although they're in the same exact vicinity. They're seeing two entirely different realities due to Cristolfo's influence. And you're starting to see those realities distort a bit, because you're seeing it with Rover and you're seeing it with Cartethyia, because they're kind of like figuring out what's going on as time progresses. You and like Lupa, obviously y'all go through this tournament, y'all start fighting, and in the middle of battle, you straight up go into a whole nother reality. This reality that's a bit more dystopian, a bit more dark, and you're able to see, wait, hold on. What the hell reality is this? And you even start to hear Cartethyia, which goes to show that maybe you almost stepped entirely in her domain or whatever reality that is, but you're like somewhere in between. And what I find interesting about this is it kind of makes sense if you and Cartethyia are actually doing two different stories simultaneously at the exact same time, now the transitions between you fighting and then her fighting makes more sense as well. And what's cool is how they ended off everything. The ending was like my favorite part, obviously. We all love cinema, right? They had like some Demon Slayer UFO table type like presentation here at the end between Cartethyia fighting the Arsinosa. But apart from all that, keeping in the timeline of things, you get back and the tournament's done. You've won. The celebration begins. Augusta, the priestess, and Arsinosa show up. Arsinosa acknowledges you and Lupa. Highest form of honor in the history of Septimont, right? Nothing is better than being acknowledged by Arsinosa. He only does it to the most like formidable of warriors, which is Augusta, Mia, and then now you and Lupa in the history of Septimont, at least to my recollection. That's cool and all, but you're the Rover. Of course you got acknowledged. You get to go back to that other dystopian reality with Fleur-de-Lis walking around looking bad as usual. And then Christopho's clapping in the stands. I love that, man. I love this dude as the antagonist. He's my favorite antagonist of Wuthering Waves by far, because he's not just brute force and strength or like, I'm so unbelievably unpowerful. He's way more tactful, cunning, and prepped. He's very calculative and meticulous, and he's also very confident. I love these type of people. He's like a very slick kind of guy. It reminds me of Willy Wonka from Bleach, bro. My boy Udahara, Kisuke. Like imagine if Kisuke was a villain, bro. They're like, oh my God, this dude gonna be a problem, bro. You know? But I loved how they ended it off with him, because he speaks in such an eloquent way, and he speaks in ways where it's like, you know, like when he tells her, you can't undo my story by yourself. The architects of this tragedy, it wasn't just me, because she tries to point her blade like, you're the reason. He's like, nah, it was the Septimonians themselves, a collective murder so entertainingly woven with blood on every hand. Who's left to point a finger? I love the way he talks, bro. He's great, and his VA is amazing. But apart from all that, the funniest part was when he told her, like in a confident way, like, you can't do nothing about this. She raised her sword up in the air with that Excalibur shit. I don't care who you are. If you see Fleur-de-Lis raise that sword in the air, you liable to shit yourself. And his little facial expression at the end was gold, bro. He was like, oh shit, hold on. You know, I better get out of here. I thought that was awesome, man. That is, man, I don't think I've ever yapped that long about a fucking gacha story. Wow. I wanted to be thorough, and I wanted you guys to see my passion come out like seamlessly, because that's how much I really enjoyed it. I'm interested to see how it is all going to unfold genuinely and sincerely. But I hope they can stay true to that little ultimatum that they pitched to the Rover. She said he has to kill Lupa or face some type of insane calamity, destruction, you know? I don't want to see a scapegoat, a third option, but I'm fearful that might end up being what's going to happen. And if that's the case, I'm also expecting it, right? It's a gacha story. That's not an excuse, by the way. I'm just saying I'm used to this shit happening in this space. It's still pitiful if it happens, but I expect it because based on past, experiences, we'll see what happens. But if Kudo actually gives us some real darkness here, that isn't just some garbage, then man. The thing is, I don't see how they would do it, because they pretty much are telling you to kill Lupa. You can't kill Lupa. You're about to pull on Lupa. That's just the gacha way. That's just not how that works. So how are they going to do that? Are they going to switch realities? That's the way I think. The way I see it is they're going to switch realities, and you're going to kill Mia instead, because Mia's obviously not Lupa. And you're just going to have to deal with that, right? Or I've been wrong this whole time, and you've been hanging out with Lupa, but Lupa's actually Mia, and the Lupa on the other side is the real Lupa. That would be an insane drop, right? I don't know, because I don't look at leaks. Some of you guys, I already can tell y'all right now, there's gonna be some cringe people down below in the comment section, like spoiling, because they've already looked ahead on story probably. But those are all my thoughts. Overall, I think my review rating for this 2.4 story was another 9 out of 10. I get it. I've been giving Wuthering Waves high ratings on its story. I think it's deserving, guys. I do. I think they have upped their game. I don't think Wuthering Waves is another gacha game storytelling anymore. I don't. I think they have completely, evolved past gacha quality levels of storytelling. I think Wuthering Waves tells a story on a AAA level, but just not quite yet, because they still have I would say the visual novel elements still, right? Where they can't move as much because of the rigging of the characters and such. But it's done on such a beautiful way, and presentation wise, voice acting wise, cutscene, like the methodical approach to the storytelling has certainly surpassed Hoyo, which I guess that's the highest form of storytelling in terms of the whole shebang in this space by far. Every single one of these stories, guys, I've enjoyed since 2.0. Like before then, it was like, but since 2.0, they've been really good. They have. I don't know what you want me to say. Just the truth, and that's how I feel genuinely. Anyways, enough yap. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you made it this far, thanks for watching. Peace, love, and happiness. Comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. I'll be reading. Peace.